and welcome to the Manatee Glens Report. I'm Sandra Guffey, the Director of Public Relations for Manatee Glens, the specialty hospital and outpatient practice for mental health and addictions in our area. In Florida, 7 people die each day due to pain pill addiction. Our state has the dubious distinction of having the highest per-person prescription pain pill sales in the country. We are talking about pain pill addiction on the Manatee Glens Report today, and the help that is available for those that's struggling to overcome it. Our guests are Nestor Levesque. He is the Director of Outpatient Adult Services at Manatee Glens, and Samantha Stewart. She is the Clinical Supervisor at Manatee Glens. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with, what do you do there? Nestor, we'll start with you. What is your job and your function at Manatee Glens?
As a director, I oversee the adult programs at our outpatient facility that provide substance abuse and mental health services to all our adult clients. Try to monitor for clinical oversight of the programs and program development, and just to continue to provide quality service to the community.
Absolutely. And Samantha?
I oversee the outpatient therapy, which serves both mental health and substance abuse adults, and also the outpatient detox program.
Okay, intensive, and some of that is we call an intensive outpatient detox?
The outpatient detox is a 7 to 14 day program that runs 7 days a week. It provides structure, groups, 4 hours a day, med management, and education regarding addiction. The goal is that the client successfully detox off of the identified substance.
And then they go on to the next step.
Which would be therapy,
Okay.
outpatient therapy. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, we're talking about pain pills. Do you see, is that a prevalent addiction that you're seeing at Manatee Glens?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what is it that makes pain pills so, what's the allure? What would you say? Nestor, I'll start with you.
Well, the strongest effect of most pain medications is the euphoric effect, which is very strong and very intense with most of the opioid-based drugs, which we're talking about in this case, many of the pain meds, and they create a strong sense of euphoria for people, which is quite a pleasurable experience, and it just reinforces the idea that there's pleasure to be obtained from continuing to take the drug in higher and higher quantities, unfortunately.
So do they have to take more in order to maintain that sense of euphoria?
After a period of time, there is a tolerance which develops for folks that they would require more and more of the drug in order to achieve the same desired effect. And that's where the real problem for these pain meds comes in.
Is that part of what makes them so addictive?
Yeah, what happens is the brain naturally stops producing those feel-goods, and the pain pills, like he was saying, do it. And so the brain starts to be rewarded by the feel-good, and so you want to keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's like a pattern the brain produces. And so then they become physically addicting, where if you stop taking them, you feel stuff. You feel physical discomfort. So it's not only mentally addicting, but also then physically.
We hear Florida is at the epicenter, that just really all over the state we're having problems. Is that what you see and you hear in your circles? Maybe you could tell a little bit about, how bad is it? What do you see?
In the state of Florida, I know that, as you said in the opening, that there's been a very strong problem with the prescribing of these medications. In a lot of cases in pain management clinics, and there are plenty of appropriate pain management clinics, but there have also been what I guess has been described as pill mills. And this has created a real problem for us in the state. And I know there's been a strong effort statewide and even in the regional areas to try to address the problem, because it does creates a lot of problems. And Florida has been really at the front of that, unfortunately.
Right. I even heard that in Broward County, one time there were more pill mills than McDonald's restaurants. So, obviously, we're not talking about the legitimate pain.
Correct.
It's the ones where this is just a mill, so to speak. Teenagers, I'm hearing teenagers are having more of a problem. Are you seeing that, Samantha, too?
Definitely a younger population that we're seeing come through. I serve the adults, but we do see 18, 19, 20. I think it's a social aspect or curiosity. when they're experimenting with drugs or alcohol at a young age. And as we talked about earlier, the way it becomes addicting, they end up getting hooked and having problems early on in life with the difficulties that it creates.
And oxycodone, or oxy, is that the most common one? And that's an opiate?
That is an opiate-based drug, and it is one of the most commonly prescribed drugs, and the one that's most available that people will tend to use and abuse. Teenagers will get access to it through their parents, through grandparents, through all kinds of avenues. But yeah, that's the one that seems to be the most prevalent and the one that we see most of happening, being abused.
Yeah, doctors prescribe it a lot, anything from dental care to surgeries, and so it's easy to find. It's easy to find and easily obtained in many places. And dentists are one of the largest prescribers, and so it's a real issue. Why can't somebody who's struggling with this as an addiction why can't they just quit? Why can't you just stop doing that?
Well, the brain is rewarded. So, and when they come off of it, if they are dependent on it, which a lot of times the substance leads to dependence, if they stop taking it, their body will go through withdrawal. They will wake up feeling sick, shaky, fever, flu-like symptoms, so that the brain goes back to that natural reward system of, this made me feel good, I'm gonna go back to this. Because no longer the brain is producing its own. The pills have created so much unnatural source of that. So they do it sometimes just to maintain feeling good, as in not getting sick. So it's very difficult to come off of.
Yeah, I think Sam's point is really important to take away, is that when someone has a prolonged addictive history, their continued use isn't really any longer to achieve the euphoric effect, which was originally the intent when they started. Is they're just now trying to avoid experiencing those flu-like symptoms. And I'm sure we've all had the flu, and when we've had those symptoms, we know how unpleasant they are. And so a person who's not had that drug for some period of time will experience those symptoms uninterrupted until it's out of their system, or until they replenish the levels of the opioid in their system. So at some point it goes from being a reward to just trying to avoid the pain of that withdrawal, and people will do just about anything to make sure they don't experience those symptoms.
And then after the physical withdrawal, which is usually about a week, becomes an emotional withdrawal. We call post-acute withdrawal, where we see severe depression and anxiety and sleep problems. So then clients again go back to the old reward system of, I want to feel good, this made me feel good. So no longer are they worried about the physical, it's then the mental health symptoms that we see.
So you really have to work together. I mean, it's a physical and a mental and a behavioral issue, and detox doesn't sound like fun, but that's the first step. They have to go through it. And how long does that take? Tell us about that.
Detox can vary from an inpatient stay of 3 to 5 days or an outpatient detox like I described earlier. Opiate withdrawal is not deadly, so they can do it on an outpatient level. They don't feel good the first few days. There are some medications that we can prescribe to help with some of the symptoms, like the nausea, the lack of sleep, the depression that's going to hit, the sense of anxiety and nervousness that they have. That's the medical portion of it, though, to safely detox them off medically. And then we would refer to therapy to work on the stuff that's going to come after, the prolonged depression and anxiety.
And that's hard work to get.
It's definitely work, but it's worth it. We always tell them it's worth it.
Okay, yes. And is that 12-step? Do you use 12-step programs or similar things at Manatee Glens? Nestor, what kind of programs?
Yeah, we strongly encourage all of our folks to utilize the help that's available through the 12-step programs that are in the community. It's one of the best things we have to help people achieve and maintain sobriety and abstinence over the long term, where they have access to someone, a sponsor in most cases, someone they could get in touch with on a frequent basis, meetings they could attend to learn from the experiences of other people who have gone through the same thing and how they've done that. So that sharing of experiences and successes at trying to stay clean, it really is helpful, and we strongly encourage that as part of our ongoing program, as well as behavioral therapies, which also help, as Sam said, to address the emotional things that will inevitably come up, the behavioral changes which really need to take place as well. All those things need to happen as well. So it's a part of a comprehensive program that we try to provide, and definitely 12 steps are a very big part of that.
Do they sort of need to learn to live life differently now? Maybe they need different friends. Perhaps their friends were part of the problem that they were facing. It's not just, okay, you're well, goodbye, have fun. There's a lot to this. What is involved?
It's a complete restructuring of your life. Changing your people, your places, and your things is one of the biggest things that we encourage for the clients. Changing the behaviors that you've been known to do, whether that's the drug use will create behaviors in yourself that you don't normally would do. It's out of character, so we got to change those character defects that we develop. Changing the way we've coped with things in the past. Learning new coping skills, which would require behavior changes, as he was saying as well. We do encourage AA, as Nestor was saying. It's the single largest support system for people in recovery. And it gives people hope that I can be like that person that's sober 20 years. And hope's a big part of recovery as well.
Absolutely. And they can learn, I mean, even job referrals, I've heard of things like that can help. Because if you're feeling bad about yourself, it's going to be hard to keep a job, too. So all of these things play into what has to go on. And tell us a little bit about the day in the life of recovery. What happens when somebody walks through the door, since you're working with outpatient, Nestor, when somebody walks through the door and says, I'm ready for some help, what do you do?
Well, we will sit down with them, we will assess their situation, gather some information from the various areas of their life which impact them on a daily basis, things like your family support, what kind of family help and support might a person have, what are the legal issues they might be dealing with, what's their employment situation, what's their educational situation, because that may impede their ability to get a job that's going to be able to help them move on and move forward. We look at whether there's any trauma history, and as we know with substance abuse, most folks who have some experience with substance use and abuse will probably have an abuse history. So we want to look at that as well, because that's certainly a factor that could get in the way of their being able to get and stay clean. So we look at all those factors. We take a look at what their substance use history has been, and we factor all those things in together. Develop with them a treatment plan, a system by things they could do to help start to move them in a direction of recovery, and we provide group settings for them where, again, we can reinforce that idea that there are other people who are doing well. So group therapy is a very strong and important part of the recovery process, as well as individual therapy, where people can speak more specifically about those issues that are quite personal. Maybe they don't want to share in a larger group. So to have an individual therapist who's trained to kind of use those techniques that we all have learned to help people learn to adjust, make changes in their life, and to start to move in the right direction. So we get them set up in that with a whole comprehensive program. If we need additional medication services, we also have that available as well, that we could help folks, again, reestablish a healthy lifestyle.
You mentioned trauma, that a lot of these people have experienced trauma. Well, I know about an accident. She was in a bad car accident. She was given pain pills, and then it became a problem. But she still has pain. So what do you do? Are there some things that you suggest to help people deal with that pain other than taking Oxycodone? What can you suggest there?
I think there is some holistic things that have worked for some people, like acupuncture or physical therapy. There are some not as addictive pain medication, like the non-narcotic kind, that can help. Someone who starts taking pain medication, it lowers their threshold for pain. So stubbing their toe is going to hurt much more than someone who has not been addicted to pain medication. So learning that your brain's going to play tricks on you like that with pain. There is opiate alternatives too that can help. Some can be addicting, some cannot. So it's just everyone's recovery is different, and finding out what works for you. You know, discussing with your support system what could be helpful for you if there is a problem.
Right. Try some things. Some of these things can't hurt you. Massage, acupuncture, Tai Chi, something like that. It has a lot of good benefits. So you're not going to introduce another negative. Prevention. That's got to be an important thing to discuss now in the community, really. Any suggestions on what can be done to prevent?
Well, we definitely want to make the community and individuals aware of just how risky all of the medications are, just how addictive they are. People don't really know just what kind of problems can arise from prolonged use of the drug. So it's very definitely necessary for people to be aware of what the drugs are, what their actions are, what potential risks can arise from that. All these medications are very useful. They have their purpose. They certainly do what they're supposed to do. But then once a person becomes physically addicted, then it becomes much more difficult. And so you were referring to that, dealing with legitimate pain. People are still going to have pain, and so to find a way to manage those things is important. But in trying to prevent it, all we can do, I think, is inform people as much as we can about what the dangers are, control the use of them, use them appropriately, and to really pay attention to that. I think that's our best approach.
And maybe parents need to be very much aware that teenagers or young kids can get a hold of these easily from parents and grandparents.
Right. And parents especially to be aware, if there's a life change in a child's life, a major life change, divorce, moving, relocating of schools, to watch out, maybe get them in counseling, to talk to someone, because that's when we're going to see a spike in maybe the curiosity part of a kid to reach out to something else, because everything else is changing in their life. So.
Yeah. And that's important. Kids need to see that counseling therapy is not a bad thing. They haven't done anything wrong. That it's not punishment. In the same way, people struggling with addiction need to know it's not their fault. Tell us a little bit about that. How do you approach that idea? What do you say to somebody who's probably feeling pretty bad about themselves right now?
My approach with people in those situations are generally that they moved into a place or to a situation in their life which they didn't. It wasn't part of some master plan. It wasn't part of a great plan to one day end up having an addiction. And so they may have done something as a result of some event in their life which helped them cope with the stress, with the difficulties that they were experiencing. But at some point, something changed for them. And I think what we can do is help people recognize that it was a choice. It was an unfortunate one, but it's something that if they've made a choice in one direction, they can make a choice in a different direction. And to really give people a sense of hope and a sense that they can control this. That once they've started using, the control is much more difficult to regain. But once they've, as Sam said, they've detoxed, they're beginning to get into therapy and treatment, then they gain a greater sense of control. And the greater sense of control they have, the more they feel like they can get on top of that. And I think that makes a big difference in how people can move forward and start to take control again.
Yeah, people need to feel like they have control of their lives.
Because for so long their life has been out of control, that they feel like there isn't any way to fix it. But I think once they get an opportunity to detox, get some sense that they can move forward, they can do this, every day that goes by that they don't use is a step in the right direction. It helps to support their confidence and encourage them.
Now, if you have a family member, a friend, someone you care about, and you think that they are struggling with an addiction problem, what should you say and what should you not say or do to kind of help them through this? Samantha, what advice do you give?
For families, support for them. That's a huge one. Whether it's Al-Anon or Manatee Glens offers a family group to families that even if their child or loved one is not a patient, to understand the disease of addiction and what's going on in the brain of their family member and why they can't just stop, and just, have that willpower to stop using. Also enabling. Often family members will enable and not know that they're enabling the client or the family member to continue using by giving them money, giving them a place to live, allowing these negative consequences to not happen because they're preventing them from the client having those consequences, protecting them from them.
A little tough love.
Right.
Oh, yeah, that's got to be hard, especially if that's your child, and you want to say, oh, okay.
And I think that's the issue, is that for families, it's very difficult to see your loved one suffer, or what we perceive as suffering, and we want to help. I mean, I think that's just a natural reaction. But what I think we have to do, what I would encourage families to do, is to make themselves available to their loved one for the purposes of for recovery, to make that the priority, the place in which they're willing to help out. As Sam said, to just give money, it can be a very dangerous thing, or not in their loved one's best interest. So if a loved one who's maybe suffering with an addiction is asking for money, find out why. Find out how else you might be able to help them get what it is they're looking for. They may say, well, I need it for books for school. Right. Okay, well, we'll go down and we'll get the books. We'll go out and do that together. Or so that kind of a thing. Yes. So we want to help, but we have to be wise about how we do that, and that the help should always be for the purposes of helping the loved one achieve recovery. Always looking to that end, and again, giving families a sense that they're helping. May not seem like it right away, but they are helping, and again, giving them a sense of control, a sense like they feel like they have some ability to help out in a positive way. So I think that's important as well.
They probably feel as helpless as the person struggling with the addiction does.
Absolutely.
That this is, they're out of control too.
And they don't know what to do.
No. We always like to end on a positive note. I'm sure you've both seen many successes. I'll ask you both if you'd share a success story with us. Nestor.
Well, that's a good one, because just before we started, Sam said, well, I could tell a story about a client that I've had in the past, many years ago, and I tell this story quite often, that I have a postcard on my desk or in my office of a family, and it's of a client who I had been working with for a very long time. When I had last physically been in his presence, he was doing very poorly, and to make a long story short, he flew off to Australia to meet someone he had met on the internet. Well, many years later, he sent me a postcard and was doing extremely well. He was healthy. He was productively employed, had a family, and was doing very well. And so the point of the story is just that we never know when people are going to get it. We never know what it's going to take to help someone get well. We can't give up on people. That's really, I think, important, that we can never give up. It can seem hopeless. When I had last seen this client, I thought, the poor guy is going to be dead. But I was wrong, and thank goodness. Yeah. And I think that's the important message to take away from this, is that we don't know what it's going to take, or what's that one thing that's going to happen that's going to help a client get well or help a person get well. And we have to stick with it. We have to be willing to hang in there with people and to help out in whatever way we can. And I think that's the success of that story for me and with that client.
And never give up. Samantha, I'm sure you've run into some great stories too.
Kind of tailoring on what Nestor was saying, is I had a client that continued to relapse, and you don't want them to get discouraged. You want them to be able to learn from those experiences and move forward. And relapse after relapse after relapse, finally they get it, and a year and a half clean, and building a life for themselves that they probably never thought could happen after all of the things that happened during their addiction. So knowing that relapse does happen, but you can pick up and keep going forward and just stay in that day that you're not using. So.
Oh, absolutely. And that's probably important for them to share their stories with others who are facing an addiction as well.
Absolutely.
Is that empowering to be able to go up there and say, I was there? I
think the most powerful thing for one person who's suffering with an addiction is to hear from someone else who's suffering with an addiction saying, yes, I did it, so can you. I think that's important. Yeah, that's one of the most powerful messages.
Yeah, and it's never too late. relapse happens.
Absolutely.
And just don't give up hope.
Right.
And for family members need to hear that too, I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Well, there is hope and there's help out there, and I appreciate it. It's great to know that we have both of you on the front line serving people and just doing a terrific job. That does wrap up this edition of the Manatee Glens Report. I want to thank you, Nestor and Samantha, for your time and being with us as guests on the Manatee Glens Report. And I also want to thank you, our audience, for tuning in to the Manatee Glens Report here on METV, where you can learn something new every day. We'll see you next time.